Sweet. We are live with our first meeting of the new year. Happy 2019, everyone. Yeah, so I hope everybody had a good New Year's and a good holiday, especially everybody listening in on YouTube over there. We got a few things kicking around in the agendas today. This is agendas over in issue 438. I'll drop it into the chat as well. But let's kick it off with a quick initiative recap. We're just going to go down the list, and probably the response is going to be no update since last time, because I hope nobody's been working over the vacation. But let's start from I-18N and go down. Is Ben on the call? I don't believe so.
Not yet, I think.
That is okay. How about mentorship? Any updates?
First meeting is tomorrow. Yeah, mentorship and user feedback getting started. Basically this week. We have mentorship is getting started tomorrow, and no real updates beyond that. And then user feedback, we have in the coming months, we're going to kick off some user feedback sessions co-located at meetups. So we're beginning scheduling that. Tracy Lee has been very gracious in kicking off some messaging and is going to be helping us with promotion and marketing of those events. So, in the past year, we've done a good job at sort of delivering on events, kind of subpar, in my opinion, of creating awareness and sort of driving attention to those events. So to address that, we are collaborating with the foundation team to go and promote what we're working.
Beautiful.
I'll add to real quickly, Dan, and maybe you and I can take this offline. This is with regards to user feedback. I've got two things that I'm trying to push forward. I was focused on the promises one and trying to push some of the questions back to the people who are most active in the issue, but I haven't really had much activity from them. Dan, you and I can maybe take this offline, but I think we should just develop something of a framework to enable others to, follow this pattern to build out a feedback survey, and then we'll take it with the foundation to, execute the data back. So that's my little bit of an update there.
Sounds good.
Beautiful. We're going to be talking about Node.js collection in a second, so we'll punt on that update. As for website redesign, in a similar place to last year, we're just working out the final, dotting our I's, crossing our T's on resourcing, and then going to be properly kicking off in the next day or so, or next couple days, the development portion of this all finally get some code flowing through, which I am psyched for. So, been making good progress on that.
Also,
and then,
oh, I just want to add something to redesign before we move on. There is some influx of new content. I believe it's proposed new content, the stuff that was donated by NodeJitsu a while ago. If we can get them reviewed and through our CFP process, we will have them in the redesign. But that's all.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I'd love to see how we can fit that into the existing content structure we have. We also have a fun opportunity to kind of get a proof of concept or a staging area for new content, so we can start seeing it live in a format pretty soon. There's a thread going around with that, so psyched about getting that as an early proof of concept. Yay. And then I would love to continue the practice of just getting quick Bootstrap updates in this meeting. Joe and Michael, I think you two are also in the meeting. You want to tag team, helping me give a recap of what happened last time?
Yep. The thing I'd highlight is we're working hard on the governance for the CPC. We've had a number of discussions, and it's particularly, I think, of interest to mention that the current discussion and I think trend is towards having, one group, which is the CPC, as opposed to a CPC and C3, as we've discussed earlier. So I've done some work to merge in the responsibilities that would have been with the C3 into the CPC governance document. So it would be good if this group took a look at that to double check that we've covered everything and everything that you think should be in that group, assuming we have a single group is there. The other thing I'd highlight is, so there's the base one you can look at. There's a PR to suggest an approach where we have like an inclusive group. So basically anybody from one of the project members can join. But then we also have a separate set of voting members, and those voting members have some additional responsibilities like making the final decisions on who gets into the foundation and things like that. But the idea is like we're all part of the one group and we're all working together. We're all responsible for these things. And really the voting members only, mostly will get engaged in terms of the decision making if we can't come to a consensus. So the whole group can come to a consensus as, work on consensus as a larger group. And then only in cases where that, we're not trending to the consensus, can that smaller voting group get involved. So I think it'd be good for people to look at that PR as well to see how that reflects in the wording. And then finally, the latest one, and we're looking to land that next Monday. The next one is around board representation, which I think is also interesting to this group. Earlier thoughts was there'd be like one board member for the CPC and one for the C3. If we only have a single group, then what do we do? So there's a PR that suggests that actually there's three. One would be for the board or the director representative from the CPC. And then the two others are based on, it says that the CPC is responsible for setting a process which would define those two. The initial recommendation I added, and this was just my thoughts because we hadn't discussed in the meeting itself, was that we would start with those two being represented by having one dedicated to Node, and it be the candidates would be from either the TSC or community committee, with the vote by the membership of node.js, and then the second one would be from the non-node.js projects, and similarly, candidates from the leadership of those projects, and voted on by the members. The rationale behind that would be Node is actually significantly bigger than a lot of the other projects. So if it was just like an open vote for two projects, for two representatives, Node could potentially swamp representation. So you get some benefit to the non-Node projects by having it separated out, as well as it kind of recognizes Node as a constellation project by, at least initially for the first year, saying that they get to choose one of the representatives. So that's the discussion. That's again, we had a discussion in the Bootstrap meeting that we should figure out the directors and that it be a process by the CPC. But I added in my own initial thoughts there. So don't take that as what it should or needs to be. Go in and comment and give your input to say if we're heading in the right direction.
Awesome, thank you, Michael. There's also ongoing discussion in the group about how we should be running the Collab Summit coming up in Berlin in June, and other very exciting conversations around naming. Those are the
right.
That's a far more fun conversation too. Although It's all pretty fun. I love governance stuff. But awesome. We're coming up on the 15-minute mark. Let's before we move on to agenda items, any more initiative updates or general updates in the group?
I just wanted to say on the I-89 side, pretty excited to continue to push for help with translating into. We've had some interest in quite a few languages, and we'll see what sticks. But people who want to translate into Hindi, Filipino, Russian, Macedonian, Serbian, Azerbaijani. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly, but we've got some interest in different languages coming up, so excited to push that forward.
Beautiful. Oh, and
and you can help. Talk to Ben.
Let's make an action item in the meeting notes for Ben, you and me to talk about website, and Manil to all chat about website redesign, since we're finally entering tech phase pretty soon, because I want to make sure that rollout is smooth.
Excited about that.
Awesome. Cool. Diving right into the agenda. First thing listed on here is issue number 435, kicking off the working group update blog series. Rachel, you opened this up, wanted to chat about it, basically in the chat there. Take it away. If you're trying to talk, we can't hear you. You're muted. Technical difficulties. There we go.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, Rachel.
Okay, sorry about that.
No
so days ago, I opened up an issue in GitHub around the kicking off a working group blog series. It's something that Sarah and I had talked about. I know she's on the call as well. But essentially, we just want to gather some stories and some updates, and not just the working group either. We also, I think it was maybe Michael who was saying that it could also be their project group. We just want to get folks updated on what, people are doing, and we just think it would be good content, and it would also just, get some folks excited about the other things that are going on that maybe aren't bubbling up to the top, and get some good visibility for all the great work that the community is doing. And so I did open an issue in GitHub, and there's been some feedback to open it up. If there's any feedback or any questions to sort of get this thing off the ground.
And this is Sarah, we do have some of the folks on the security working group had put together something at the end of last year anyway, and they have a desire to do I think they want to commit to a quarterly update output on what their group is doing. So that will most likely be the next one that we'll put into the node collection next week. I think that's about final, that blog.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So I think there's great value in serving this in a more public way for all of the working groups. Do you know how? Hey there, Tyranny. I'm assuming. There you go. Do you know the cadence that you're hoping to publish these at? Do we want to make this do we have an interest in making this more of a requirement for working groups and teams, or heavily encouraged at the very least? What's your vision for where this is headed?
Yeah, I think, we weren't trying to be too onerous with it, but, the security working group, they've already wanted to try to commit to a quarterly update. I don't know if every working group sort of has that much activity to warrant that, but at least in the next 6 months, I'd love to have at least one a month. And we were going to, depending on what type of response we got on GitHub, we were also going to do some reaching out one-on-one to people who are sort of, heading up the working groups if the response on GitHub was tepid. So that we could have, a pipeline for the next 6 months or so. But welcome, if anyone has suggestions here and thoughts on that, feel free to chime in.
I think whatever we can do to make it easier for the working group. So basically having a regular structure and tracking that says, yeah, we're going to do one a month and here's our schedule. We're going to make sure we have one from this work group this month and the next work group the next month. And then, with an example to go to the working groups. I think kind of making it so it's okay, yeah, I know what the working group members I know what to do. It looks pretty straightforward. And then, you write the blog. So if we have that all in place, and then, you're right, it will take a little bit of sort of, finding the person who's going to volunteer in the beginning. But I think if we can sort of get the regular management and planning as opposed to making it ad hoc, we'll have a much better, success in having it be a regular thing that goes out. And also for people looking for it too. So yeah, I guess I'm just saying I'm definitely in agreement in doing it. And I think the key part is making it organized and easy to participate in it for the working groups.
Okay, we'll put a little more structure around it and framework and timeline. And is there within this group, do people have thoughts on which working groups might, be extra worthy of going, earlier in the pipeline, or really active or long overdue, or someone would, who would be really cooperative?
Well, I can certainly I can volunteer people from the release and build working groups, as well as, I could help if we want to do one with the benchmarking working group.
Okay.
So those are ones where, like, I can encourage some of the people who work for IBM who are part of those teams. So that, and then there's probably other ones as well that are similar. Like, I think the modules one, I suspect Miles would probably be quite supportive.
Okay. That's enough, I think, to get us started. We'll just put those in, earlier in the queue, and to your point, put the structure around it, and update the GitHub with this additional information.
Yeah, and thinking about it, the package maintenance one would be a good one, just since we're kicking that off.
Yep.
Yeah, even like making it as easy to submit as just like set up a Google form where people can just go fill it out, and you can circle back with questions if the content they provided isn't perfect. Like, that would probably be a good workflow.
Super awesome.
Okay. Yep. Happy to.
And I guess Dan and Joe, you guys might volunteer for a user feedback one, right?
Yeah, potentially.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, so the ITNN might also benefit from a little bit more publicity there as well. Like,
Which
just
one?
really publicizing what the workflow is and the tooling set up over the past year would be
absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely due for an update.
What was the last one? I'm sorry.
It would be internationalization.
Yeah, there you go.
Internationalization. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Let us try to make it a little bit more structured and turnkey, and provide examples. And, we'll kick it off with, we have the security working group one, but maybe we'll do like even a overview mini blog that just says that this series is new in 2019, and look for it. And this will be the cadence. You know what I mean? To your point, that regularity always sort of helps.
Yeah. Awesome. Speaking of regular blog series, good segue into the next ticket. Looking forward to progress, seeing progress on that. But issue number 439, Rachel as well. Yeah, we wanted this to be added to. You had some comments on the Node.js collection, just in general for next steps.
Yeah, sure. So I know that prior to me joining the team, Zibby put together some really good, just some good guidelines and a little bit more structure around how we want to bring in editors and how we want to also, onboard writers. And I know that issue has been open for a little while, and just want to see if there's, any additional feedback to what she's proposed. And if not, I'd really like to maybe put out a new blog, just calling for new editors, and just kind of, again, just bringing it to light that we've got this, we've got this publication, and we're looking for, for folks to participate in ways that they can. And I was thinking about just doing, a call for editors and a call for writers, and sort of updating those writer guidelines with what Zibby has proposed, which is basically just a more formal process for this is how you do it. So just wanted to bring it to the floor and see if there were any, any additional feedback to that, or questions, concerns, or, just kind of wanted to get the conversation going on that again.
How many people do we have in the list of editors now?
So on our Medium alias, there are about 5 or 6. I just counted that this morning. So not too many. So I think if we could get, we could get more, that's okay. If we could get some more folks, we could put together a pretty, a really structured kind of process for, assigning editors and things like that. But, we've got 5 folks right now. So if we could up that, that would be awesome.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a target number for how many editors we need to really get that pipeline going?
I don't. I would just like to kind of see a little bit more, just more point. Yeah.
The challenge I see is it's a pretty big ask, isn't it? Like when you to sort of fully review and edit one of the articles could take like a number of hours, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's sort of two stages of the review. Like our team, the foundation team, tries to do like a pretty solid copy edit, grammar, does it structurally make sense? And then, we rely on the community to really have the is this technically accurate? Are there any big, errors on that front? So we do try to lighten the load in some sense by taking on the one part of the review. And I think Tierney has been really active in this and could probably give some history on how time intensive it has been for him.
Yeah, that's a good, because like sort of characterizing the kind of review and how long it takes would help, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think Tierney is on the call today, unfortunately, but we can ask him for an update next time, or async. I think as part of the ask, like saying how like time expectations and type of review, it would be helpful when we send that out, like a proper job description of what it's going to be.
And are the editors listed on when it goes out?
Yes, we do try to give recognition because we do know that, it's a total volunteer effort and we appreciate it. Yeah,
exactly. Just want to make sure that they get, it's like authored, written by, edited by, blah, right? So
absolutely. Yep.
When it comes to the editing process, do people edit in parallel, or does it go through like a staged review process?
The review is done through Google Docs, I believe. So there's sort of comment and feedback. And is that what the question is? Or?
Yeah, I was just wondering if the person sees the review of the previous person when they're doing that. So Google Docs answers that question.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we also maintained a sheet where we can like sign off. Is there a technical review done? Is there general review done, and what date the blog will be published? So we were keeping track of all the articles, but that was not that much streamlined. And also about, like Michael said, if the only one person is reviewing the article, then it takes so much time. But I think it will be better if we add like 2 or 3 people must go through, like just give a one look and find as much as they can, and then later someone else can review the same thing. So a different perspective, plus it will be like more better for the review also, and it will take less time for each person. So I think that will be helpful. Yeah.
That spreadsheet you had, was that visible somewhere? Because I don't think I'd seen evidence of that externally.
I can send the link.
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking like for the authors, I'm not sure they would have necessarily seen or been able to see that there was progress, like, okay, this person signed off or that person signed off. And
yeah, I can put it in the chat.
Sure. Yeah.
As for call for content, like it's the beginning of the year, I think it's a great time to do that. But what is the, I guess I don't have a good understanding of what the, hey, look at that. Yeah, spreadsheet answers my question. What the content flow is like, how often are we receiving new articles, how long to review, how long to publish. And then can we also maybe consider, I've written a couple articles, just a couple on Medium, but for both of them, other publications actually reached out to me and said, hey, can we, include yours in our collection? Have we considered kind of inverting the process here and collecting suggestions from community members, or keeping an eye out ourselves and actually requesting content to be pulled in if we're pressed for content?
I think it's something we could do. I
guess the other thing I'd ask is, what are our goals in terms of, is it that we want content to bring people coming back looking at the foundation and project? Is it that we want to provide a place for people to put Node.js content out there?
Yeah, it was definitely much more geared toward the, node and the ecosystem, not necessarily the foundation, although that wouldn't necessarily be excluded per se. And, it was thought leadership on topics that we did, pick out as timely and topical and, would get the most people excited and be most educational a couple, year 12, 18 months ago. So we could always revisit those, although I do think they're probably still that could be refreshed, but we could do a little review of that. And, we wanted to experiment with the medium per se, because of the sharing, the network viral effect. And at the time, we also did not have a Node Foundation website. We were only relying on getting, our only way to publish was through the Node project website. We were trying to find a different platform that we could experiment and get more thought leadership and content out there in lieu of having a website, which I still think there's a lot of benefits to having, you can have a blog on your own website, your company website. And then I think there's value and benefit to something like Medium, which does have the built-in network effect.
Yeah.
Right. So because I'm just coming from the thought process of, I clearly understand it from the perspective of when we want to go out there and publish something that we're working on in the project, it's a great venue to be able to do that, right? So that, and those I think are easier to review because they're usually going to come from somebody who's in the project and the topic is something that we know well, right? Where I've seen the challenge sometimes is, if it's just anybody submitting content from the outside and it's something that it's not, it's obviously using Node, but not something that the project members are participating in, it's a little bit harder then to find, I think, the people who are comfortable doing the technical review.
Well, I mean, I guess I mean, it depends on how broadly you define community too. I mean, we definitely want to have user perspectives and, we've had a hard time finding technical reviewers, period. I don't know if it's necessarily because it's of the type of content per se. And thank you to those who have done it. I don't know. I haven't think the community versus non-community member per se. You know what I mean? A project or.
Well, it's more, more was it's like, I'm just thinking like, it's easy to do a technical review for something that I do day to day and I'm involved in, right? It's much harder to so I've looked at a number of those and it's like, I'd actually have to spend time learning what's going on there before I would be comfortable doing the technical review. And I suspect that's part of the issue, right?
And so that may be part of the new process put in place if we can get more technical reviewers, is people have specialties. Like, let's make sure that we assign articles to people who can review them quickly and easily without brushing up on a topic too much. But I want to.
I'd probably have to just talk to Tierney to get a little bit more. It sounds like someone else on this call has done some reviewing too, Manil, potentially to know what the challenges have been.
Yeah, but it sounds like the general response here is, hell yes, we want to see this thing grow. Like, let's get a call for content and call for reviewers out there, and get the process more streamlined.
Exactly.
So, yeah, we have.
And I guess one last thing I would say is that, like, I think the more we can be like have a this is what we'd like to see in the content pipeline versus the miscellaneous. I think that'll help too, right? So.
Yeah, and I think this is actually really good, like debrief and like introspection. It will, I think, require a little bit more getting some one-on-one talks and just working with some of you guys to just get your points of view on what that ideal pipeline would look like before we just throw it out there. But I think that's all great because I think it'll make it more valuable.
Yeah.
Awesome.
One thing we can also do is when we're publishing someone's article in our on the Medium, we can ask that person that if it's approved, that we can ask that person to review for us later on and stay in touch when someone bring in. So that's how I joined in when I just like submitted an article, and after that I started reviewing other articles. So that was a very good start. So
that's great. And maybe we even make that a requirement. Like if you get published, if you want to get published more than 3 times, you pay it forward, or I don't know. I don't know if we want to be that strict about it, but that's a great idea.
Yeah, I kind of like that. Gives us a nice pipeline of editors.
Yes.
Awesome. So it's great commentary on all of this. It sounds like we have some good action items moving forward. I want to time box it since we do have 2 more other potentially meaty topics in the queue here. The next one being issue number 316. This is, should ComCom own the Node.js Foundation website? This has been open for a while, and it sounds like folks have had, back channel conversations where we've gotten some conflicting thoughts, and the landscape of this has changed considerably over the past, 8 months or so. So Sarah, you said in the issue thread here, you're happy to come in and chat with ComCom some more during this. You want to kind of kick off this conversation and give some of the history, what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I think, so some of the history was, especially around, I think probably the first sticking point or, challenge we had was around getting news and content and really timely, fast, even breaking type of news or press releases that we wanted posted at a specific point in time, and almost in, that we'd have some, not control, but, it was just a little bit difficult in terms of syncing with the Node existing project website in terms of always getting things published at an exact point. And most of our projects do have, some have their project site that's sort of integrated into a foundation site. I think we were feeling that there was, how to market the actual foundation and what's the value to members and how do we communicate that, and not having a property that could do that. That was another reason for the Node Foundation and the genesis of that website, recognizing that wasn't really that visible or something that was important to the Node project to put front and center, which I totally think is reasonable. So, these are some of the reasons for the eventual birth of the Node Foundation website last year. There was also the Node Interactive and wanting a property that would be able to leverage past content, promote future content, promote that heavily, knowing that that's such a big investment for the foundation, and wanting to be able to market that as much as we could. So that's sort of the history.
Awesome. So I, helping out with the website redesign stuff. The initial concept for website redesign was like strictly the current Node website, and it was kind of a thought towards the end of the IA discussion that, hey, we should maybe think about the foundation content. How can this fit in there?
Yeah.
And wasn't part of the original scope or plan of it. But it seemed from the folks that I had chatted with before, it's like people seemed interested and excited as long as the new site could meet the needs of the foundation and there wasn't this weird conflation of concerns. This was again before Bootstrap actually started off in earnest, so I'm not sure how that affects things.
Right.
But kind of the response I got was, as long as there's a easy way to interact and add content to the website, like good structured content to the site without going through GitHub or touching code, because I think that's a pretty important requirement for working with y'all. Then it was kind of the answer was kind of like, let's explore it, let's see what we can do. Right. So is that still kind of the thought?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, we definitely wanted to keep up to date on what's going on with that, the website redesign, and be able to help and sync or make the two complementary or integrate, just to see how we can and should work together. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So the kind of structure we're hoping to take for the website redesign is the site will stitch together content from a whole slew of different sources, whether that's different node repos, documentation stored in different content formats, or even pulling from kind of hosted CMSs like Contentful, which we've been chatting with on the side. So we could very potentially provide an avenue for folks to add content to the site without touching code. Essentially, it would look like pre-made forms that you can go and write content in, and whatever structure is needed. So I'd love to, maybe you and I can chat a bit offline, and anybody else, like we can do a spin-off meeting on this and actually get like feature requirements and see what it would take to maybe merge the two. Just getting, see what would be needed, especially considering like I'm not sure what marketing is going to look like for Merge Foundation, or what the thought or plan is for that after.
Well, exactly. Yeah,
after it moves forward. So what will Node need independent of the new foundation, which I'm assuming is going to have its own marketing and its own site, and what will need to carry over and still exist after the fact. So.
Yeah, that's sort of the latest new development that we'll have to factor in. But yeah, I think some offline conversations to go through this and explore it and look at the pros and cons and how it would actually work would be great.
Awesome. This might be a good conversation to have in the next website redesign meeting. If you want to, it's this time next Thursday.
Okay.
Might be a good time to hash out some of those details if you're interested.
Great. Okay. We'll definitely plan to attend. And yeah, I think I might even pull in, a different team member too, who has a lot of good web design and technical background, more than me in this subject.
Perfect. Yeah, that sounds great. I'm interested in exploring that more.
Great.
And if there's any last comments on that, otherwise come to website redesign next week and we can talk shop more. No. Cool. Moving right along. Issue 423 is next up on the agenda. I really wish Tracy were here. She could give a proper update on how the presentation of this document went to the board. It was my understanding, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, since I haven't had an update since before the new year. Oh, sorry, this is individual membership, next steps. Dan, I've commandeered your other issue as kind of kicking off the thread for what individual membership work will look like in the next year. And it's very possible we'll have to punt this until Tracy can attend to give us the update from the board. But it was my understanding that the plan as drafted in that doc that I referenced down at the bottom of the issue thread was approved. Don't quote me on that, and I apologize if I got that wrong. And actually maybe some of the foundation folks on the call can, if you've heard anything, can give some clarification there. But I think next steps are, how are we actually going to do this? What does execution look like? Yeah. What was that, Dan?
Is Mike Dolan still on?
Yep. I believe he is.
Ping, ping.
Mike, do you have any context on?
Hey guys, sorry, I was on another mobile call while this was going on.
No worries.
What was the question?
So we're chatting about individual membership next steps, and like it's very likely we'll have to punt on this until Tracy comes back and can give us the full update.
So Tracy's been working on this. I honestly haven't had a chance to catch up with her directly on it either. So I hate to say I don't know, but I really want to give you an honest answer, which is I don't really know. So I think we need to sync up when Tracy's available, unless if somebody else has had a more recent conversation. I think Miles may have had a conversation with her, but I don't think I see him on yet or on now. So
okay, so we'll punt on this for next time to properly kick it off, so that we can have the best information possible. So we will leave this for next time. Cool.
Yeah,
and then Mike, I believe you had.
Yeah.
Mike, I think you had one more update you wanted to slide into the end. It seems like we'll have a little bit of time to chat at the end here. Or sorry, it was Brian.
I think Brian was going to do an update on the node.js interactive. Brian, are you there?
I'm here. Just give me one moment to pull up the options here. Okay, great. So at this point, there are a number of options that are under consideration for Node.js Interactive 2019. Just so that everybody's totally clear on where we are in the process. No decisions have been made so far. We are in the process of scoping out some venues so that we at least have some options to look at. And there's been a very strong desire on the part of the foundation, and also this is echoed in the board meeting in December, that we'd like to collect some feedback on good places to hold this. Of course, we will be constrained by availability of venues and size and things like that, but we do have a couple of places that are on the short list here. And just really briefly, I'll go through them in the call here, but also we're hoping to get a communication out to the rest of the community here so that others can weigh in on this as well. So the short list at this point, we are looking at Denver, Colorado, Montreal, New Orleans, Seattle, Toronto, and then also looking into the option of returning to Vancouver, given that there was a very solid attendance there last year. Please keep your eyes open. We are hoping to have something out on this within the next few days or so, where we can solicit some feedback, because it's obviously very important here that in addition to getting things scheduled, that we are scheduling in places that are both easily accessible to people, and are places that that attendees would like to go.
Go for it, Manuel.
That's pretty much it. Any questions?
Brian, so question, what are the, say, your top 3 criteria for selecting cities? So I just want to know where you're going to go from this short list to actually landing on one.
So this really depends on a few major things. One of them is the availability of the venues, and we had put together this list in conjunction with the Linux Foundation events team. It's been about a month or so, so we need to verify that these are actually available. The second one, obviously, we'd like to take a very strong consideration here of what people would like to see, where people would like to go. It's very easy to make a decision, very easy to make an executive decision, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be someplace that people can go. So at this point, really the main consideration, 2 main considerations would be, are there issues for anybody traveling to the US, in which case Canada is a fairly obvious option. Is there a strong preference for West Coast versus East Coast? And then the last consideration, of course, is size of the venue. The venues that we're looking at, they do range in size from maybe a little potentially smaller to potentially larger. To be honest, the interest that we get back on a particular space will tell us how large of a venue we need. Does that help answer the question?
Yes, it does. It goes quite a long way towards it.
Great.
What type of format were you looking to collect feedback in?
We are probably going to do this as a poll. I need to talk to Tracy Lee here. Tracy has been very helpful in this as well, in the best way to do this. Do you have any suggestions? Admittedly, I'm still reasonably new to the project. So anything you'd prefer to see in terms of collecting feedback?
Twitter, maybe?
That question was posed to us. Sorry. No, I think actually a poll would be great. I think the statistical significance of it might be in question, but the people who respond are the ones who get to help guide it. I'd say definitely reach out. Like when it does go out, feel free to reach out to all the folks in the ComCom, and we can help amplify it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just like we want to make sure it gets as much reach as possible in the communities it needs to.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, Manuel, you had one more thing you wanted to.
Yeah, I had a brief question. It's like this poll, I suppose, will inform existing numbers that you already have. So I'm wondering, when deciding between East Coast and West Coast, are the European participants weighing in harder for the East Coast versus people flying in from Asia, or is it a different way that you're choosing between East and West Coast?
That is a very good point. We'll make sure that however we ask this week, try and capture that dimension. Looking at the attendee numbers from the past conference, it was about 45% US, 45% Canada, and 10% everything else. So I think that we do need to take into account that wherever it is going to have a pretty significant impact on who's able to attend. And then also certainly knowing who is where they're coming from is very important as well when they're voting. So thank you. It's a good point.
Mm-hmm. I imagine that the people coming from Canada, it's home turf last time, right? So Vancouver, lots of people just didn't have to go anywhere.
Right.
962. Oh, that's a record. That's awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Cool. Well, we'll be looking out for the comms on that,
news.
and let us know when you need us to help amplify a poll.
Absolutely. Just as a closing comment here, we're also working with Jory to make sure that the JavaScript Foundation has input into this as well. So making sure that we get both sides of the equation here.
Great.
Awesome.
Welcome.
Awesome to hear. Awesome. Well, we have about 7 minutes left in the meeting, which I'm happy to give back to y'all unless people have last minute topics they want to bring up for a quick discussion. Awesome. I will take the silence as a no. Otherwise, awesome job ending on time, y'all. Thank you for a great first meeting of 2019. I'm looking forward to everything we're going to be doing this year.
Woo!
Thanks, folks.
Right on.
Cool.
Thank you all. See you next time.
Bye, y'all. Bye, everybody.
All right.